I am an environmental scientist with the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. I work for the Division of Water Quality in Stormwater Management, and I am the point person for green infrastructure statewide. So I was asked to talk today about a little bit about what we're doing in Newark. I work in most of our CSO communities where we're trying to build partnerships, and I think this group knows a lot about Camden. Camden is about 3 or 4 years in. We're doing some great things, and we had hoped on the state level to take that model to other cities that needed it. And we're finding that, so Newark was our second city, and we're finding that depending on the city and the partners there, these partnerships are going to develop differently. So I'd like to talk a little bit about how it developed in Newark. So I'll give you a little bit of a background about what was going on around the time that we started working in Newark, and we'll talk about the goals that we set and how we plan to get there. And then I want to talk a little bit about subjects that are ongoing. So we started working in Newark. We just passed our first year anniversary. So the summer of 2013, a couple of things were going on. The first thing was that the draft CSO permit was being developed, and the department was talking to all of our permittees and EPA and had determined that we very much wanted a green component in the long-term control plan. And so the draft permit, which was rolled out late in 2013, had a component where the evaluation of green infrastructure was required. So we aren't telling these municipalities that they must use green infrastructure, but we are telling them that they need to evaluate it as a portion of their long-term control plan. Additionally, there's a strong public participation element in the draft CSO permit, and that's in 3 phases. So in the beginning, the permit requires public participation as the permittee is characterizing the system. Then there is a public participation requirement for the alternatives analysis for the long-term control plan. And then finally, there's a public participation component for implementation of long-term control plan. So we really wanted to pull green and public participation in, and we really felt that these partnerships, the stewardship partnerships with green infrastructure was really the way to go. At the same time, actually a little bit sooner, PVSC, which is the Passaic Valley Sewerage Commission, which is the utility for Newark, had begun talking to the Rutgers Cooperative Extension about doing green infrastructure outreach and technical assistance, and they were thinking about how they could get that implemented in their service area. This happened pre-Sandy, and then Sandy hit, and PVSC, which is located in Newark, was badly hit, so that was put a little on hold. But it got started again, and finally a multi-year contract was executed in May of 2013, so right around the time the draft CSO permits were going on. And so that's kind of the backdrop of sort of the 2 big things that led to our partnership in Newark forming when it formed. So in the beginning, so our first meeting was in August of 2013. In the beginning, there were just a few of us. It was the City of Newark's Office of Sustainability, PVSC, Rutgers Cooperative Extension, and DEP. We quickly reached out and wanted to expand our membership. And so our current membership is large. We have a lot of different groups. We are very fortunate to have a number of Newark City offices at the table. We've got a number of environmental groups. We have pretty much all of the ward, the community groups from each ward around. Passaic Valley Sewerage Commission is also a great partner. Trust for Public Land. So we've got a lot of people at the table, and as great as that is, sometimes it gets a little unwieldy to make decisions, but we're working it out. After a year, we're sort of realizing that we need to break down into smaller groups for project-specific things. So one of the first things we thought we needed to do as a group was to come up with a vision statement, a goal. So what we came up with was that we were committed to improving the quality of life, health, and viability of the city and its residents. And our primary goal was to establish a sustainable green infrastructure as the first line of defense to manage stormwater runoff, improve water quality, increase resilience to flooding, which in the post-Sandy world here in New Jersey, as I imagine in many places, it has become really important. And also to reduce CSOs, which ties really well into the draft CSO permits that are coming out. So in order to meet our goal, we came up with a strategy. It's four-pronged. So the first one is stormwater management planning, outreach and education, which is so important. I probably can't even give it enough credit here. Developing green workforce, as Mike mentioned, in Baltimore, we have the same sort of paradigm in Newark. We've got a lot of abandoned areas. We've got resident work needs, and as we are trying to increase the quality of life environmentally, we're hoping that green infrastructure is also going to be a conduit for green jobs. So that's really one of our really big ways to get the most bang for our buck. And then obviously just by installing green infrastructure through pilot projects to begin with, but then ultimately working with the Water and Sewer Department to strategically place these where they make the most sense to deal with the CSO problem and the water quality issues. So the first strategy, stormwater management planning, a while back the City of Newark did a sustainability action plan. The link is right here, so you can visit that if you'd like. There is a section specifically on stormwater management. As I mentioned, we're extremely fortunate that we've got various city agencies at the table, including the Office of Sustainability, Water and Sewer, which is extremely important because they're the ones that are the CSO permit holders, or the agency within the city that's the permit holder. And then engineering, which is also important because they are the agency that does the reviews for development projects, so we can ensure that green infrastructure is considered during that process. There's a stormwater management ordinance on the books, and it's actually a very strong one. It has requirements for stormwater quantity control that's significantly more strict than the state requirement. And then there's a GI policy. So we're looking at pilots, we're exploring funding options and developing guidance, or at least trying to take the guidance that's already developed and either tweak it for Newark-specific needs or just make them available. Outreach and education, we are constantly trying to figure out a way to get our message out, not just about green infrastructure, but informing people that what a CSO means, that when there's localized flooding after a rain event, that there's raw sewage in it, the things that we can do to address it. So we go to schools, we give workshops for not just schools, but there are neighborhood workshops for rain barrels, rain gardens, and then we really use a lot of volunteers. One of our partners is the New Jersey Tree Foundation. They are amazing. I'll talk a little bit about them later, but every time we do a tree planting, there's lots of people from the community. Rutgers Cooperative Extension has been really great. Every time they do a rain garden planting, we've always got people, some free labor, but also it's a great learning experience. So I mentioned the green workforce. There's a couple of nonprofit organizations in the city of Newark that really are focused on the green workforce. The first is the Greater Newark Conservancy, and they are very focused on greening Newark and providing green job opportunities for Newark's residents. It Takes a Village is an organization that helps the transition for prisoner reentry. and training for green jobs. And the Newark Youth Leadership Program is a great program that teaches the youth of Newark about green infrastructure and leadership, and hopefully those will be our future leaders and green infrastructure proponents. And then installation. So as I mentioned, one of our strong partners is the New Jersey Tree Foundation, not just in Newark but also in Camden. And I guess I should have mentioned when I started talking about our partners that Newark DIG is a partner. It's a loose coalition of a bunch of groups that are doing essentially the same thing, but through this program, through this partnership, we're at least aware of what everybody's doing. So New Jersey Tree Foundation has been planting trees in Newark for many, many years, and they're continuing to plant them, but under the guise of understanding how everybody else is sort of fitting in. And so we've got this cross connection between the Tree Foundation and Rutgers Cooperative Extension to maybe maximize the outreach and education we can do. So I want to make that clear that while we are working together in a partnership, each of these organizations are still meeting their core mission on their own, but it's about coordination, and it's really about rowing the boat in the same direction. So we have a ton of tree plantings going on in Newark. Many of them are done through the New Jersey Tree Foundation. To date, they've planted 2,000 trees. That's definitely not in the past year. It's probably, I want to say, in the past 5 or 6 years. And what that really equates to for the water quality stormwater management benefit is that's 17,000 square feet of concrete removed. So even if we don't do anything below that for storage, that's just 17,000 square feet of impervious that's just no longer there. And even if you don't have below ground storage, trees during the growing season are really great water users. So a tree in and of itself is a great green infrastructure. We also do a lot of rainwater harvesting installations. Our cistern program is working strongly with the city's community gardening office. There is one, I call it an office, but there's one person who is really the point person for all the community gardens in the city. And many of these community gardens do not have a water source. And there is a lot of volunteers who try to bring water to these community gardens for watering. I just heard a story that there was a firefighter that we just recently connected with who during the summer would go around to different community gardens and fill up their water jugs so they could get the garden watered. But through this process, we've started installing cisterns for these community gardens. So we're either taking advantage of adjacent buildings and offering the building owners new gutters if they let us install these things, so these community gardens can be self-sustaining, or we are building structures where we can that do have some roof area that we can collect that water from. As I mentioned, we do a lot of workshops, and some of those workshops are rain barrels for homeowners. And then there are also water conservation workshops. So I think on the stormwater end, sometimes I forget that I'm thinking of the end point of what do we do with the rain, as it falls and it runs off. But in a CSO community, it's really important that less water is going into the system, not just from the rain, but also every time somebody flushes the toilet or turns the tap on. So water conservation is a really important component of CSO control. So we have a couple of projects that we're pretty excited about that are under construction. The first one is a project that is being headed by the Trust for Public Land. It's Sussex Avenue School. They are doing a new turf field, community garden, rain garden, and we are anticipating that they will be completing this site at the end of next month. So we're really excited about that, and hopefully we'll be able to get some updated pictures. And we are in the design phase right now for a traffic triangle, we are taking a current traffic triangle that is completely impervious and hoping to take all the runoff from that area and divert it to a stormwater planter. The community has been heavily involved in actually all of our projects. But this one in particular, when we talked to the community, they really felt that what they'd really like this traffic triangle to be would be an area for them to utilize for public seating. I think we were talking, I heard there was some talk about chess players really wanting to utilize the space. So it's an exciting project, but we're still looking, while we have the design almost, we're anticipating the design will be complete by mid-November. We're still looking around for some implementation dollars and hoping that that is something that we can find fairly soon. The partners for this was the Rutgers Cooperative Extension Water Resources Program. They are the ones that are doing the design, and the City of Newark has contracted with them to do this work. And as they were doing the design, they really worked pretty closely with the Traffic and Signals Department. Anytime you're doing work in the right-of-way, the Traffic and Signal folks can be really helpful. So I just want to go quickly back to the background, how we sort of got started and what was going on at the time, what our goals are, how we're getting there. As I mentioned, stormwater management planning is key. There needs to be, at the city level, a commitment to do that. Outreach and education on every facet is so important. In Newark and in many of our CSO communities, green jobs are really a good way to tie two needs of the city together. And then just the pilot projects. So that's all I have. This is my contact information. If after this session you have some questions, I can be reached at that phone number or this email address. And the first website is our green infrastructure website. Unfortunately, we lost our web person for that, so it hasn't been updated in a while, but we're really going to be working on that soon. And then the second website is our NewJerseyStormwater.org website, where you can find a lot of information about New Jersey's stormwater program, all of our permits, and maybe for some people the less interesting stuff. So if you've got any questions, please let me know.